Welcome to another episode of the All Pop No Culture podcast. I'm your host this week, Kevin. This week we have Pete and Andrew back, and this week we are going to cover a whole bunch of horror stuff and very little else. We do tangent a little bit early on, which is actually kind of fun. We check out the late 90s, early 2000s and have some talks about that. But the meat of the show here is Andrew and I discuss the Conjuring universe, specifically Annabelle creation and The Nun. And then to stick with the horror vein, we talk about the Taking of Deborah Logan. Before that, actually, Andrew talks about Velma a little bit, and I discuss the video games Dead Space and the new Hogwarts Legacy game. Once we really get going, we talk about the two most recent episodes of The Last of Us, episodes 4 and 5, which take place in Kansas City and have the story of Henry and Sam, which is an excellent story. I do talk about the one thing that disappoints me in all of the Last of Us TV show, and it is in episode 5, but I still love it, so don't get me wrong there. As always, thank you for watching. If you're listening, thank you for listening. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Speaking of sharing, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, just share the episode when you see it so that a few more people can see it. The more we can get, the better. We've had a lot of good watch numbers lately, so we really appreciate the support. Thank you, and enjoy the episode.
All right. So I have to say straight up that there are really cool episodes of the All Pop No Culture podcast coming up. Between the fact that you've got, Mandalorian returning, you've got my personal favorite show of all time, Attack on Titan, returning, and we've also, of course, got the final season of Star Trek, Picard.
Yeah.
I mean, that alone is like going to be incredible. Not to mention Cocaine Bear, and not to mention Ant-Man Quantumania, and not to mention the fact that one of my great friends, his name is Chad, better known in Chicago as DJ Risky Business, is going to be on the show in a few weeks. And I'm telling you right now, I know lots of people who are into pop culture, but when you meet this individual and you see his tats, it's all marble Star Wars. Like this is a real dude, and he actually does toy photography.
I've seen his stuff. You showed me that, and I think it's dope, dude. I think it's so creative because when you're good at it, it looks like maybe not quite real, but I mean, like, it looks cool. I've seen some people do. I've seen the Star Wars ones, right, where you have the stormtroopers. They're actually blowing shit up, like letting off little explosives when they take the pictures and stuff, and it looks like a real battle. Like, it's crazy.
He takes it really seriously. So I mean, yeah, I think that 2023 is going to be a great year, and for everyone who's already kind of been, listening or catching on, or your friend shared it and you're watching it, like, we're glad to have you here. And and as you've probably seen, like, we've had people come on as guests, so whether you're commenting on the YouTube, like, "Hey Seuss, what's up, Hey Seuss," or you're coming on the show as a guest, this is like a celebration, man. This is a community, and we're having fun doing it. So I don't know. On that note, I mean, do you want me? Can I talk about that?
Yeah, tell me,
show?
explain to me how Velma doesn't suck.
Yes. So basically, and again, like, I'm big on objectivity and subjectivity, right? So I think for me, subjectively speaking, for some reason, I was okay with Velma. So if you don't want to be spoiled, I guess leave now. But you know what? No, I can actually pull it off without being too spoilery. But basically, Velma starts off with a mystery, of course, which, of course, her mother disappears. And there's people who are getting their heads, actually beautiful people, who are getting their heads kind of cut open and their brains taken out. And by the end of the series, we actually find out, like, who actually is behind all this, what happened to Velma's mother. And you know what? I'm just torn on whether or not to even spoil the whole damn show. But basically, the murderer, if you will, has a very kind of real motive, and the motive is very sociological. And I'll just say it's all about privilege in a way. It's like, let's just imagine, if you were able to take someone's brain and then put that brain in another person's body so that way they can actually move through the world with the kind of advantages that that person's body has. Like that's the motive behind it. So when people say that this show like isn't woke, I would say it's pretty fucking woke. Like it definitely talks about, so I sort of spoiled it but not really, but the whole idea is to give advantage, that's what it's about. But the characters themselves, you know they're just satirical takes on society, whether it's Fred being the privileged douche, whether it's Velma just being like the nerd, whether it's Norville having seen some shit, because there's violence in this show and Norville is very anti-drug. But one kind of funny thing at the end is after he's being counseled, then his dad's all, have you thought about marijuana? Like, so you kind of, it's setting up, obviously. So this is very much a prequel. Daphne again. I don't really even remember Daphne from the original cartoon. So we think we established on 2 weeks ago that I never watched Scooby-Doo because I was that weird kid who didn't watch Disney or Scooby-Doo. But anyway, but Daphne is probably, I would say, the most sane cast member of all, because she's self-aware and now, yes, I used to be a geek, but now I'm hot, but I can still code switch with Velma. Who am I forgetting? I think that's everybody in the cast. But yeah, it's, I guess what I want to understand really is everyone has a very kind of viscerally, oh, who am I forgetting? Wanda Sykes, man. Wanda Sykes is in this epping show, and Wanda Sykes plays one of Daphne's moms, and she's hilarious. There isn't anybody I don't any role Wanda's done that I didn't like.
Yeah,
I'll
I
have to
like
give
her a lot.
geek cred. Weird Al Yankovic is actually a cast member in this.
Really?
Yeah, so that's one cool factoid here. And then also Ming Na Wen is
She's the
Daphne's
other mom, right?
biological mom. What's that?
Is she the other mom? No, she's Daphne's biological mom.
Yeah, and you meet her biological mom, and that's how you know, oh my God, that's, dude, just on this show. You know how we talked about how the ring to the Daphne is half Asian? Not
Mhm.
only is her voice actor what's her name? Oh man, is it Christine?
Constance Wu.
Constance Wu Asian, but now you've got her biological mom is also Asian, but she's white in the show. Anyway, yeah. Um, what I want to understand, and I'm almost challenging people, like, um, can you tell me like specifically like what you don't like? I mean, I get like the humor is like cringe or whatever, but like I almost need a little bit more than that, because like I think I'm a pretty intolerant motherfucker. Like me, Kevin, like I'm pretty picky. Like my attention span sucks. So for me to actually want to watch all 10 episodes, by the way, I keep saying 8, it was 10. So that proves to you how much I did mind this show. I would put it on, let it play. I would cringe. I go, wow, that was like way over the top, but whatever. But I didn't hate it. That's what I want to know. Like, and I'm hoping that in my travels, on my internet pop culture travels, that someone else will watch the show and not hate it as much as I did. And maybe someone who's a little bit more on the woke is a dirty word, but whatever, who's a little bit more on the woke side can actually like say, hey, I'm pretty fucking woke. Okay. I like this, because right now, no one, and the people who don't like this show, they're not Trumpers. They're literally just regular people who don't like the show. And I'm just trying to
Yeah.
figure out why. That I'm just curious. I'm talking a lot, man. You go.
Yeah. No, I need. I have been watching that '90s show instead of Velma.
Okay.
Um, and I've gotten more okay with that show. So maybe I can try and knock out Velma before next week so that I can speak more with more of an education on it. Um, there were things that I did like about the first episode, but there was a whole lot of things I didn't like about the first episode. Like that whole opening scene for me was just a huge turnoff. Like if I wasn't at least dedicated to watching that first episode because I really wanted to get through that first episode because of all the reviews of it. Um, if I hadn't dedicated myself to watching it, I think I would have turned it off in that first couple of minutes.
Now,
Uh,
keep going.
it is just so over the top and so for me, it goes beyond the irony of it and the points they were making. It was just so extreme that I was just like, I don't know. I don't know. And it seems like it keeps doing that and
Oh yeah.
it like leans all the way into its cliches, all the way into its tropes, all the way into its everything. And it's a lot for me. And like I said, I love the cast. Like I actually like love the cast. I like Mindy just fine. A lot of people kind of have issues with her, but I've always liked her. I love Constance Wu. What's his name that plays Freddy, whose name was just Glenn Howerton from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And he's fantastic. It's just and then yeah, and then what's the guy's name that plays uh not Shaggy?
Oh, Norville.
Norbert.
All right, I think it's hold on.
I can
Sam
picture him.
Richardson. Sam
Yeah,
Richardson.
yeah, yeah. Who's hilarious. So like I love him because did you ever watch Veep?
No.
Okay, number one, you need to watch Veep. Go that show, you will piss your fucking pants. That show is hilarious.
Is that
Like just
Julia
the
Louis
first
Dreyfus?
episode. Oh my god, yes.
Okay.
So good.
Okay.
Like it's everything like if it's like the least PC vice president you could ever have.
Huh.
She is so far beyond the top of her game on that show. She won awards for it for a reason. Like she's fantastic.
Damn.
But Sam Richardson is on it. Not Sam Richardson. Is it Sam Richardson?
Yeah, Sam Richardson. Yeah.
Okay. Um, he's on it, and he's this like super timid, like really. He speaks the same, but he's very much a yes man and very okay. And then you watch Ted Lasso, and he shows up in the second. Is it the second season? Ted Lasso as a totally different guy. He's an African businessman trying to buy one of the players, and he's super rich, super confident, and all this. And then he's got this moment in there where he just goes off and just has like throws a huge temper tantrum and just completely different than who he was on Veep. And then I feel like he's probably a little closer to his Veep character in Velma. Like not necessarily a yes man, but he's just like he's not super tough, right? Like he's not out there, you know, being the manly man. Um, and he's fun. So again, I love Wanda Sykes. Like she she's fucking funny and everything. Like she's rad. And I forget who plays her girlfriend slash partner slash wife, whatever. Um,
I'm trying to look it up, actually.
but I know it was somebody I recognize. Like the cast is awesome. I just wasn't a fan of the writing in the first episode, so I need to see. Um, I'll force myself to watch a few more.
That
Uh,
that'd be great just to get because again I want to understand that. And another thing that you just kind of like it's funny because I've always known it, but uh Jane Lynch, it's Jane Lynch.
oh, that's right, Jane Lynch. Yeah, fuck, love Jane Lynch.
Yeah. So that's actually really kind of authentic too to get two real lesbians to play lesbians on the show. So that's what I mean by this show is kind of just in. But like the other thing though that I'll just kind of admit, it's always been there, but I just for some reason either forgot to mention it or just kind of embarrassed to mention it. But I'll just speak for myself. I've gone through lots of eras in my life in terms of my personality. I think a lot of it has to do with where I've moved, where I lived. So obviously, like New York kind of toughened me up a little bit. California was pretty soft. And so I was in Chicago, same thing, right? But I was also, long story short, is I was a really like good friend. Like I was that guy that you could just totally rely on and was almost selfless, and I'm not saying it was a bad thing, but I'm gonna be real. Like aspects of Norville, not all of them, but aspects of Norville reminded me of me. I'm just being real, So I can't believe I've been doing this on this fucking show, but it's just real. Like when you're on any kind of like whatever media thing, I think it helps to just kind of like bare your soul and be like exposed and just be vulnerable. So I'm gonna be fucking vulnerable, man. Like aspects of Norville reminded me of me because if I'm your friend, just being real, like there to the end, man. I'm loyal. I can you can rely on me. And Norville is someone that I think Velma honestly kind of took for granted, and you see that in the show as it goes on. But he's a really good dude, really. So again, aspects like I never had to like a whole like, oh my god, I'm in love with my best friend, or whatever. That's not part of it. But everything else, like as far as even liking fencing, I never fenced in my life, but I would love to fence. I think it has something to
It's
do with
hard on the knees, dude. I did it like even when I was young. I did it in college back at Las Positas. So that tells you how
huh,
long ago that was. There you could take it as a class, and so I took a fencing class, and even at like 24, I was like, "Fuck, dude," because every pose that you have, you're kind of almost like it's sort of like boxing or karate, where you kind of sit down on your own, and bend back, so you're putting that weight on your knees, and then you shuffle your feet back and forth. You never take big steps and big leaps. Um, and so it's definitely it's hard. It's really hard on the knees, but it's fun.
yeah,
But just like any activity like that, so just like if you take martial arts at an older age, it's almost like a foreign language. Like when you're young, you're built for that shit. Like foreign languages when you're like 6 or 7 or 5 or
neuroplasticity.
whatever, it's just natural. As soon as you get older, you part of your brain is like, I've seen this done so many times, it should be easier for me, right? And then you start it. For me, it's like if I go to try and play a new musical instrument,
Mhm.
I forget that I have to start at the beginning. So like when I need to go when I want to go play the guitar or go play the piano, it doesn't matter that I grew up playing music since I was 6, and I played the violin when I was young. I played the clarinet, I played the tuba, played the trombone, I played all these instruments, but it doesn't matter. If I don't learn the right way to play that instrument, I can't play it. And so with the guitar, you've got to learn your chords, you've got to learn your finger placements, you got to learn all your stuff and your scales. And like I look at like tablature and stuff, and I'm like, oh, I can just do it like this, and my hands just aren't made for it, and it sounds like shit, and I've got no idea what I'm doing. So you've got to start at the beginning with that stuff.
You said two things that made me kind of smile. The first thing is I totally play the tuba as well, and I also play the cello. But I also laugh because you talked about finger placements. Because I remember as a kid, we didn't call it finger placements in Canada; we called it fingering. But whatever. Anyway,
Yes, yes, which is totally fine because you learn it when you're a kid and you don't know that's the worst wording you can use.
anyway,
Yeah, and
but
stringed instruments,
hmm,
orchestral stringed instruments are a pain in the ass because you don't have frets like you
yes,
do
you just
like you
have to
do on a
know.
guitar. Yeah, you
Yes,
gotta. Oh,
feel it out. But it was
so
kind of cool, man. I that's
cello's
so
dope. You know who else played the cello? Chester Bennington. Yeah, I got turned on. I don't know how far off track I've gone already, but um, I guess yesterday or recently was the 20th anniversary of Linkin Park's Meteora album. And they did a 20th anniversary release, and they have a new song on there called Lost. For the chat, I put the video in there, and it's all Chester Bennington. So like if you were a big fan, it kind of hits you right in the feels because he's been gone for a while now, and uh it's this very solid old school Linkin Park song, because Linkin Park, the longer they went, they started inching towards pop. Like the last album they put out was super poppy, and I wasn't a fan. And then he passed away like 6 months later or something like that.
So I'm down with the tangents. So basically we're gonna park Velma for now because you guys know how I feel about it. But I want to indulge you for a second because this reminds me of when we talked about Woodstock 99. I don't know if Linkin Park was there, but I feel like they were part of that kind of movement, like that would like with Papa Roach and all them.
Yep.
I will say that which makes me nostalgic, by the way, because that was like all around like we're all the same age. So like it's all
Yeah.
around when we were all like graduating or
It
whatever.
was right. It was right from like 98 to like
Yes.
2003 in that
Yeah.
area. Yeah.
So I didn't get into it really, but I will say though that like that reanimation album I think they
Oh,
had,
that album's dope. Their
that
first
got
remix album.
yes, that got me. I owned it. I listened to it. My December, like I know My December,
Oh,
there was a remix and an original, and I heard the original actually, but then I heard the remix. I was like, whoa.
you see, that
Anyway,
was all that music was in the Napster LimeWire era. So like My
dude.
December, if you wanted to hear My December, it was bootlegged copies of My December because they didn't put it on an album.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
there was
Okay.
no. It may have been on an extended album, but then when they did Reanimation, they had the cut, which is still great. Like the remix of it's really good. But I saw it in concert. I saw Linkin Park, Papa Roach. I want to say that was the concert that had Linkin Park, Papa Roach, Eminem,
Nice.
Limp Bizkit,
Wow.
and somebody else.
Is that the Warped
But it
Tour
was like a
maybe?
not so silent night or something like that
Okay.
in San Francisco, and it was it was incredible. And Chester Bennington was on stage with the cello playing the cello part for My December. And I was just like, "Fuck, dude, these guys are dope." Because I was already a fan. Like I'd been a fan since their first album.
Hmm.
But they were also the dudes that took two albums and made four albums out of it, right? Because you had Hybrid Theory, which everybody loved. That was their first one, and then Meteora came out, and then Reanimation came out, where they're like, "Hey, we made two albums. Let's remix the shit out of those."
Ah,
And then they did the one with Jay-Z, which is
right.
fucking
Yes.
dope. Like I could play. It's only
Yes.
6 songs, but I could play that on repeat for like life.
Huh.
Um, and then they started, doing their other stuff. They broke out a little bit. Like I know Mike Shinoda did his own stuff. Um, and I forget the name of his band now. I keep wanting to say Sum 41, but it's not what it was called. Um, but his other band had a couple of good songs. Um, but like I was always Linkin Park fan. Like I liked every album, except for the last one I didn't love. But I think if I listened to it enough, I'd probably be okay. And and now they're just, you know, a piece of history.
Where were they from?
They were from where is Lincoln Park? Is it in
Yes.
is it in Chicago?
Well, I mean, that's it would be funny because I was like, I think there's Lincoln Park and like there is a Lincoln Park in Chicago, but I don't know if they're named
No,
after
I
that.
think they are. I think
I
it's
gotta
Lincoln
look.
Park, Chicago, and then then they came to L.A. But the reason that the first album was called Hybrid Theory is because that was their original name for their band. And they couldn't get it together, and then ended up naming their band after Lincoln Park.
All right. So basically, I did. Well, it says here on Wikipedia, Agora Hills, California. But I also know, but you said that, but I also know I think there's a Lincoln Park in San Francisco, but it looks like Agora Hills. Either way, whatever.
Yeah.
I always like wondered, like, that's a cool name, Lincoln Park, but why were you named Lincoln Park? You
It
know?
had something to do with actual Lincoln Park.
Okay,
I thought it was not in California, but I could be wrong about that.
no worries. But yeah, that was fun. I mean, and again, I enjoy. Shoot, I'm nostalgic. That was 20 years ago or 20 plus years ago.
Well, the Meteor, their second album was 20 years ago, so their first album was even longer than that.
Yeah, it's a trip, man.
Yeah.
It's a trip. Speaking of
So
trips, then, do you want to keep it historical and go to the origins of a certain doll, or is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
real quick, semi-historical because I talked about it a little bit ago. I played the game Callisto Protocol on the PlayStation, and I thought it was okay. But it was a spiritual successor to a game called Dead Space, which came out in 2008. Very, very similar games, horror franchise, because that's what we're about to talk about. Um, and so they completely remade it for the modern generation, right? Because this is 2 systems back now. And number one, it's amazing looking, like the graphics are incredible. Um, but they re-upped the animation and all that, so the graphics are better. They redid some of the acting, so the voice acting is even better. They cleaned up some funky story elements because it was already a great game, and it was a fucking dope game. Like, it was a great remake of a game. Like, it's atmospheric. It's the entire thing takes place on a mining ship. So you're going to recover a mining ship that went offline in outer space, and you get there and nobody's there. Like, everybody seems to either be gone or dead, and then it turns out they come back to life and mutate into these nasty monsters. um and I it's just, think of like Alien almost, how you're always stuck in a tunnel, you're always stuck in a hallway, you're stuck in these small spaces. And that's how it feels all the time. Like, sometimes you get into a nice big wide open room or whatever, or you have to do like a zero G thing out in space or something for a few parts. Um, but it's tight, and like the sound editing is what really made that game work. Um, because they didn't jump scare you every chance they got, which was kind of the problem with the Callisto Protocol. Um, they let you walk through some tunnels and just have you hear the sounds in the distance and have you hear things that are funky, but nothing jumps out at you. And it built a story. You could find text logs from doctors and people that were involved, that were seeing things happen. There were audio logs of weird shit happening. It's a really cool story, and just it's super trippy. And I'm stoked to see that this one did so well, because they may remaster the second one now, which would be awesome. And so if you're into horror video games and you have a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox One X, I think is what the Xbox One is, go get it and play it. It's fucking amazing. And if you don't have those, find the original and play it. The graphics aren't as good, but the story is still the same and is friggin' awesome. And then this week, Hogwarts Legacy dropped. There's a Harry Potter video game where you play a kid 100 years, 60 years, 100 years before Harry Potter. So you're kind of back in time. So it's pre-Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. And you start off as a fifth year student at Hogwarts, and you go through all that. So if you're a Harry Potter fan, it's the beginning is definitely like tutorial like. So you're going through all this stuff. And I haven't got far enough to know what it's like, but I know that they designed this game for exploration. There's literally, if you can see it on the map, you can go to it. So as soon as you get like your broom and you can fly, you can go all the way across the place. You can go to all these places that you've seen in the movies or read in the books, and travel around and do all the stuff. And they put the effort in to make every single place look good. So I'm excited to get further into that. All of my kids are playing it. Like all three of my kids have their own save on it, and they're playing their adventure. And it's been kind of cool because it's only been out for 6 days, I think. Well, technically it's been out for one day. It came out on Friday, but we pre-ordered it, and so we got like 3 days early. But
in my feed, I saw like a couple of like some controversy, or like some like someone was designed to look like what's her name, like J.K. Rowling. But like, did you see any of that?
I haven't seen anything.
Okay.
I haven't seen that controversy, and I haven't seen anybody that I looked at and been like, "Oh shit, that's J.K. Rowling." I know there are a significant number of people that are like, "Don't play that game because you're giving her more money," and she's the devil now. Like she
Yeah.
like, I don't know how you let yourself go from being so beloved to being so hated.
Yeah.
And she just like,
She's
she's not
unrepentant.
smart enough to just sit back
Yes.
and say, you know what? I'm not educated. I'm sorry. This is on me. I will get better. Go do some work in the trans community. Go do some work in whatever community that you're actively offending, and be better. Because like she could still be like the greatest human being in the world. Like, she's got a story, right? Like, she was living in her car, like she was broke, like her story was great. And now she's just like this evil
Pariah.
bitch. Yeah. And I'm like, just like, dude, just like every time I see somebody that's famous and just can't get out of their own ass, I'm like, just say you're sorry. Say you're sorry and fix it. Get out
or
there
or or,
and just
or even better, which I know is her, it's hindsight's 2020. Do no harm.
yeah,
Like you're like, think about what you're gonna say before you say it. Because like because my even back in like when I was in college, right? Because I was definitely like I was an RA, so that means like I feel like I was kind of like on the forefront of wokeness, whatever. But like my whole thing, I was telling them like we're not the. I don't think we should be the thought police. I don't think we should be telling people how to think. Okay, but what I do think is let's create, before the safe space became a word, let's create an environment where people can actually be and like actually not feel threatened or hurt or damaged or whatever. So ask yourself, Miss Rowling, like, are these views really going to like make the world a better place? Like, is this really adding to your legacy? Like, what are you gaining from making that stand? Like you're not. It was just bad form, and it's sad because like I was on the older side. I didn't have any kids, so for me, I was late to the Harry Potter thing. As a matter of fact,
so was I.
the only book I read was the last one because I was like, you know what? Let me at least read one of these motherfuckers before the movie comes out. So I watched the curse the sixth one and Half Blood Prince. And then I read the book and I saw the movie, and it was funny because there are differences, but like
Sure, for sure.
overall, it was like it would have been great to have been a Harry Potter kid. So I can only imagine how crushing it must be.
I adamantly refused to read them because I was like, kind of, kind of like how you are liking Velma because everybody hates it. I was the opposite. I was like, everybody loves this shit, and I don't understand. Like, I'm not going to do it. And so I actively avoided Harry Potter. It was before the
Oh,
movies came out, but by the time the movies came out, there was three or four books, and
yes,
it was like I remember people
followed
were
by
waiting at midnight outside the Barnes and
Mhm.
Noble in Dublin,
Yeah,
and like it was like a
pandemonium.
rock star was there, and it was literally just a book release. Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
And I was just like, nope, I'm not going to be part of that, whatever. And then I read Stephen King's On Writing. It's a book that he wrote about the craft of writing and the things that he's learned, and some of the things that he does as a writer. It's a really cool book, which I recommend in its own right. But at the very back, he's got a list of books and authors that he recommends. And I don't know how he feels about her now after everything she's done, but he was a huge J.K. Rowling fan. And so at the back of the book, Harry Potter was listed. And I was like, fuck. Because for me, like if
Stephen
Steve
King.
says it, I do it. Like he's my writing like guru. And so I went out and I read the first one. And the first one's a little tough to read. It's kiddish. It's her first book. Like she's learning how to write. By the time you get to the seventh book, like she knows what she's doing. Like, yes, it's still a little kiddish, but at the same time, by the time you're the seventh one, there's so much adult shit going on. I mean, you got people dying, you've got murder, you've got, all this stuff. And and she did a really good job. And it just bums me out that she's such just
A Gina
she
Carano.
can't control herself.
No.
Like you when yeah, Gina Carano, another one like who I think I've said it before. Like I've met her. Like she worked out at the same
Jim.
gym I worked out at, and she's a very nice person. Like she's sweet, she's kind, and all that. But man, sometimes you got to be smart enough to just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, man.
Like when you got the world sitting in your hand, when everything's going your way, just 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 shut up.
That reminds me of like, so like, we're going on a tangent here again, but if you don't mind, I actually have these like six rules of life. And four of them are from the four agreements, and the fifth and sixth ones are ones I made up. So just really quickly, the four agreements, if you know them, are never assume, be impeccable with your word, by the way, which would apply here, so it's
Yep,
not about
yep.
just, it's about your words are powerful. Um, don't take things personal and always do your best. Those are the four, right? The fifth one I say is control the controllables. So basically, it's like if you can't, if it's out of your control, let go, dude.
Yeah.
If it's in your control, do it. And the sixth one is don't fuck up. Like that's like these are literally like, it's like if I was an android, like those are the six kind of like running like
The
scripts in
commandments,
my
yeah.
brain. Yeah. And so I feel like Rowling she messed up on not being impeccable with her word, and she messed up on don't fuck up. So yeah, these are things that are not hard to follow, but apparently sometimes the simple shit is what keeps you in line. So with all that said, I have to say, ladies and gentlemen of the podcast, we have one of the OGs from the 1.0 era itself, Mr. Petey Knuckles. What's up, man?
What?
Yeah. Well,
And, and by the way,
good
Kevin,
thing
you can
he's
tell
yeah.
things have kicked in, by the way. So I'm back.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
back,
back.
baby.
It's a good thing Pete's here, because we were just about to talk about things that he has nothing to talk about. So we're we're really quick. We'll try and move it along, because we definitely want to get to the other stuff too. But Andrew and I have become horror buddies. We're watching the same shit all the time.
Yeah, it's yeah.
We're currently buzzing through the Conjuring franchise. And because we're a couple weeks behind, we've got two movies in that franchise that we've watched recently, one of which is Annabelle Creation, and the other is The Nun. And for any Conjuring purists out there or fans out there, we're watching them in release order, not chronological order, because there is a difference. Different things came out at different times. But Annabelle Creation is the story of how our dear little doll Annabelle came to be the total asshole that launched this entire franchise to a degree. And I'll just say it was the more of these movies that get made, to me, the more cliched horror they become. This one, at least Annabelle Creation, while not true, still has some elements of truth to it in the history of the Annabelle doll in real life. I think we've talked about it before, but the real Annabelle is Raggedy Ann doll. It was not created by a dude. But similarly, there was a car crash involved with the child, and that's how the doll ended up being haunted. But watching this one, what's your take on this one, Andrew?
So again, like I was talking about it earlier in the pre-show, like there's a total random plug. There was an old 60s movie called The Beguiled with Clint Eastwood. And it just reminded me of that movie in a way, because it's like Clint Eastwood is one guy in a house full of girls and women. Like it's kind of a weird dynamic. So with this film, I liked the fact that it had such a female centric vibe to it, because it was either girls or women who were the protagonists.
Yeah.
A lot like Hereditary, I think it is a cautionary tale. Like when you're grieving, do not reach out to the spirit world to try to like recreate your shit, because whatever is like answering you is not your dead relative. Like just know this, okay? So whether it's Hereditary or this movie, it reminds me of that. At this point, I'm not as scared anymore, because like to your point, like it's not as based in reality, and some stuff happens in the movie where you're like, come on, man, like that didn't happen. Like no one was sawed in half by a fucking ghost. Like it didn't happen. Like you're not hanging on the wall with your guts spilling out. Like what? But that happened in the movie, and it sucks, because whoever the person it happened to, like they did not deserve that shit at all. As a matter of fact, I feel like of all the Conjuring films, like the people who end up dying did not deserve to die at all. Like they were literally just like good people doing their best. As a matter of fact, only one person really fucked up. Yeah, the sawed-off person, sawed-off shotgun hand. Anyway, the sawed-off person, they didn't like. They meant well, but they're the ones who brought this shit on everyone. So whatever. But Anthony LaPaglia, I think that's his.
Yeah.
He was a good dude, man. Like I'm spoiling a little bit. I don't care. It's an old movie.
These movies are old enough.
Yeah, but it's like, but he was doing his best, man. Like you throughout the whole movie, you're like, this motherfucker's creepy. But then like by the end, you're like, oh no, he's just a good dude trying to like protect the kids, and Annabelle, the Annabelle demon's an asshole. But basically by the end of the movie, like it actually made me like the first Annabelle more. I'm getting chills now because like basically the girl that ended up becoming a Mansonite in a way, like it wasn't
tied
really
into
her
the first
fault.
film.
It was like she was fine until the doll was in proximity. Once the doll moved over, it was a wrap. It was almost like she was activated, and then that's what it implies, because like she was fine. She was fine for like 12 plus years. So, it's like I like origin stories. I like world building. So, believe it or not, yeah, I liked this movie better than The Conjuring 2, because The Conjuring 2 again was ruined by a British ass demon. So I'm not scared of British ass demons. Whereas this movie was like, it just made Annabelle. So right now, the two movies that scared me the most in this series were the first Conjuring, because again, like, yeah, because she's getting all like shit's fucking up. The first movie was good, and then the Demon on the Ceiling in Annabelle 2, in Annabelle 1 fucked me up. So if I had to rank them right now, it's the first Conjuring, the first Annabelle, and then this one. I actually liked Annabelle Creation. So we're gonna keep it moving, and I'm gonna pass the mic back to you. Most people want to say something, and we can go through fucking none.
Yeah, this one, the only thing I'll say too is that, like I said, what got me in this one was just the cliched things. Like some of the voices were a little silly for me. Like they did some weird voice shit. And then of course, like the straight up out of Gremlins thing where you're trying to escape the monster and you sit on the chair that goes up the stairs, and it's like a 4-hour climb up the stairs as you're running away from the monster, and you're like, you're not going to make it, but let's film the whole thing because it just, yeah, I was like, ugh. And but like it was interesting. The other thing too was like, why the fuck didn't that nun take those fucking kids after like the first night that things were just fucked and just be like, cool, we're gonna go, let's go stay in a hotel, I don't care, like they, I feel like especially a nun in that situation would be like, this is a bad place, we need to go, and not leave those kids in a dangerous position.
But I actually, it's funny you say that, because like I was like, damn, that sucks, because like they were so poor and so at the mercy. Like it also felt like a period piece. Like these are like,
Oh, for sure.
We're like rejects. Like one of us is like straight up like disabled. Okay,
polio,
Two,
right? She had
yeah,
suffered from polio.
Polio. Two, like, there's nowhere for us to go. We're just like these, homeless, useless. Like I'd say, like we're like, this is. Remember, they're women, and this is back then. So
they were the island of broken toys. Like they were,
yes,
the abandoned and all that.
So she's even saying like, don't break the rules. We have nowhere else to go. If we offend owners, you can be creepy as fuck. It's like, so I get it. But you're right. Like, and it's like I'm like the guy in The Taking of Deborah Logan. Like as soon as shit starts fucking up, I'm out of there. Like, and he left. Like I was a bit of a friend from, but I was like, yes, dude. Like you are me. He's like, okay, that's it. I'm out. He took the van and rode off. That would be me. Okay, go back, Kevin. I'm sorry.
All right. So that was Annabelle Creation. Decent, not terrible. I look at the IMDb ratings for a couple of these, and I'm like, I think it's probably a little better than they're giving it credit for, but definitely lots of cliches.
Oh, by the way, one more thing. 15 million budget, 306 million box office. So even
that's a decent haul.
Terrible. They made some fucking money.
That's a decent haul.
All right.
Next up is The Nun, which is about a demon nun in France. Is that right?
Yes.
And
or Romania.
Okay, of course. Why not Romania? Everything's in fucking Romania when it's trying to kill you. It
filmed in Prague.
Yeah. And I mean, it was okay. It was okay. You suffer from a lot of the same thing. Like what really killed me was the music and the sound effects in that one. It kept doing that like monk chant like over and over again in the background to like imply that it was scary.
I like
it. And I was just like, oh
yes. Yeah. I was like, yes.
Yeah, it's cool. Like for like I don't know 3 scenes, but when it's in like 90% of the scenes, you're like Jesus Christ. They should just have monks there and get it over with.
No pun intended. Jesus Christ, keep going.
Yeah. But this one is about a convent in Romania that it turns out is not good. They are very bad, naughty nuns who were originally protecting basically is effectively a trapped demon, right? Like the site they had trapped a demon in, and they were protecting it, and then ultimately they kind of got a little shadier over time. Whether they got I don't know what I must have missed it, but like what kind of moved that whole convent to the dark side, right? Because they chose to let the demon out by the end. Like that was the thing that happened at the end. Because the opening scene, she walks into the room, she opens the window, she's got the noose, she says, "God forgive me," but she's not killing herself to escape. She's using herself as a sacrifice for the demon to take over as she jumps out the window.
You know, it's funny because like I totally didn't get that, you know,
Oh,
but
they
it's
explain
okay.
it. Yeah, they explain it.
No, I thought it was she killed herself because she wanted to protect. Because the thing is, the demon needs a soul to get out, right?
Yep.
So she had to kill herself so that way he couldn't get out. So this is what I understood. This is great, by the way. All right. So basically, for what I understand, okay, this convent, okay, was established by the Catholic Church to contain. So basically, this one like aristocrat, whatever, tried to bring this demon back into the world. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So then the Catholic Church sent their armies, whatever, to kill him and then make sure that this demon was not able to escape because there was a rift created in there. So they send these nurses, and they're almost like special forces nurses. He sent these nuns. They're special forces
Ninja nuns.
forces nuns to kind of watch over it. But basically, Valak, that's his name, is getting stronger and stronger and stronger to the point where, and they go in to get that relic because the relic has the blood and the relic is in that chamber. What happens is like Valak was like, yeah, no bitch. So he basically kills one of the nuns.
Yeah.
She gives the key and goes, you need to do what you got to do because if he possesses you, then he has a body and he can get out of here. So she kills herself so that basically Valak has nowhere to go. And that's what brings Vera Farmiga's sister, who is fucking hot, by the way, just saying, let's keep putting it out there. And then the fucking priest, they go in there. She has visions. She sees all these dead ass nuns thinking they're alive because she's powerful. And the church knows she's powerful because that's
why they sent her. Yeah.
Yeah. And then basically by the end of the movie, like she basically gets possessed and shit's about to go fucking left. And then, Frenchie, who understandably is like totally attracted to her, but has to like respect her fucking nunship, like he saves her by putting the blood of Christ on her possessed body. The demon is outside of her body now, and then she fucking has a badass fucking showdown with the Valak demon because underwater while he's trying to like kill her, she puts the blood of Christ in her fucking mouth. Then he fucking pulls her up. He's like strangling her, like, yeah, I'm gonna kill you, bitch, so I can go inside of you. That way. Anyway, that was bad. And then she spits his fucking blood all over the face. He's like, ah, and then fucking
sucks back down into the
hell. So for me, it reminded me of that old. Remember that Friday the 13th show back on the day on syndication, like with like Romy or Roby, whatever. Anyway, it reminded me of that shit with the cursed relics. It was like I just saw it as these fucking nuns. Wow, I said fucking nuns. I'm Catholic. Anyway, these nuns. Like they all gave their lives to protect the world from this really cursed place. But what's really freaky is that Valak already possessed fucking Frenchie.
Yeah, like some fraction of him. Yeah,
and then we see him as connected to the rest of the universe. So I'm defending the honor of the nuns. I didn't see them as like evil, but maybe I'm wrong.
The only reason I say that is because there is a scene late in the movie where they say that she didn't commit suicide, but she gave herself up to be possessed.
Okay.
And there's actually a line about it, and I could be remembering it wrong, and I 100% believe that's possible because I'm old and infirm and my brain doesn't work. But um, it's this is the only one that I heard. The only other problem that I really had was like I felt like Tyga Farmiga she was the hero, right? Like,
Well, yeah,
yes, the priest was there, but then there was that moment where Frenchie, just in the cheesiest fucking way, comes busting in with a shotgun and saves the day.
I thought he was dead.
And it's like I liked him, but it was such a like a you need a man moment that I was just like, ugh. I was like, because she was in control most of the time, even when she was out of control, like she was still like in control, and it was just kind of the way that he busted in and saved the day that I thought was so corny that I was like, oh.
He was so MCU in a way, and early MCU, not late MCU. So it's like he would say all these lines, and I would laugh, like he's like, "Should we do a prayer?" And the priest goes, "There are times for prayer, there are times for action." And he goes, "Well, this seems like a time for prayer." Like it was just like little funny things, you know. I'm like, "Dude, come on, like this is a horror movie. Like I get it. This, yeah, none of the Conjuring movies have been funny in any way.
Yeah,
And now
not at
they're
all.
trying to insert this funny shit, but they're probably gonna keep doing it because apparently it's made the most money of all of them. So whatever. Oh, by the way, I'm also super excited because the screenwriter, I forget her name, but she screenwrote Megan. She is screenwriting the writing the script for The Nun too. So it's like
Okay.
I like,
I thought the Nun. Oh no, the Nun 2 comes out this year, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was already out, but I think I'm thinking of the Conjuring. The Devil made me do it.
Right. I think that just came out. But apparently there's La Llorona and then something else after that.
Yeah,
So like we still got a
we
ways to
have
go.
3 more. We've got La Llorona, Annabelle Comes Home, and The Conjuring. The Devil made me do it.
Yeah.
So
What's your favorite possession movie? Where possession is like the
I'm biased, but I would probably say I have to watch it again. But it's the first one I ever saw, which was Amityville 2, The Possession. That was freaky as fuck. It terrified me, and it seemed very realistic. Good
Kevin?
question.
to be fair, I haven't watched very many. I think the first Conjuring would almost be up there for me.
Same.
It's that moment that it went too far that kind of lost it for me. But it's otherwise it's a great movie, and it's so subtle in the things that it does, and that's what makes it work for me. Until it goes, until it kind of jumps the shark, Arthur Fonzarelli style. But it is a really it's a good flick. The first Conjuring, definitely the best of the entire franchise.
Yeah.
Like as is often the case in horror films, you start, the longer you go, the more cliched you become because you're trying to reach that wider audience and make that money, and we just saw it, like in The Nun. Now all of a sudden you got a comedic character in there because he was the comic relief for the entire thing, and I liked him. Like, he was fun, but it was definitely different. Like, it was not something that existed before.
See, I got to go with the 1998 thriller Fallen, starring Denzel Washington.
Mm-hmm. That's a different kind of possession story a little bit, but yeah, that's the one where the last scene is the kitty cat, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you about the time I almost died.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that movie, Andrew?
If you haven't seen it,
I've never heard of it.
Fallen is fucking great. Christy,
Right.
okay, so Christy does not do horror, or even like, she also, like, the one she really doesn't like is the possession Catholic churchy kind of, like, she just doesn't, it's just not her bag, right? So we watched this movie and she was freaked out, like that Rolling Stone song we didn't listen to for literally years.
But it doesn't feel like horror at first, right? Like, it wasn't billed as a horror movie. It was
it's not really a horror movie, but it's an incredibly supernatural thing. I would classify it more as a thriller, but dude, it's so good.
It's Denzel, so you know what you're getting right there.
And there's I don't want to give, I like, there's a lot,
especially if Andrew hasn't watched it, don't give anything away.
I want you to watch that because that's worth a discussion. That's a flashback worth. You will.
Yeah, I'm in. I'm
very curious to see. There's one scene in that movie that I just think is done so well that I really want to see what you think about that.
Yeah,
I can't wait. Yeah,
that's
watch
a good
Fallen.
call. That's a good call. Speaking of possession movies, we got one more that we watched that is outside of the Conjuring franchise, but we sort of talked about a second ago, which was the Taking of Deborah Logan. And this one is interesting because I had a lot
Sounds like
of
a bad
technical
Pornhub
issues.
search.
You know, one would hope, but it's not. It had a lot of technical issues for me that I'll talk about in a minute. But the crux of it is this film student slash maybe she's a medical student. I don't know. She's doing a video about a woman with Alzheimer's or early onset Alzheimer's, and they were going to study her, and then over time they come to realize that she's been possessed, and it gets all crazy, and she eats a little kid. It's definitely a bizarre flick, and it's a little slow to the take on the possession piece. Like it takes a little while to
Eats
get
a
there.
little kid. Don't bury
That's
the
an
lead, fella.
exaggeration. She doesn't like eat the
Hey,
kid.
she only gets the kid's head in her mouth, and then she spits it back out. Yeah,
Would
she
have
doesn't
been better
fully
if
eat
she
the
actually
kid.
ate the kid. That would have been dope, dude.
Yeah, I mean,
You
well,
might have
actually,
you might have had me in. Like if you said no, she eats the fucking kid. I'm like, well, shit.
that's because the demon that possessed her ate kids before. You know, um, but it was interesting because, and this one of the things that I thought was cool, but doesn't work on home video anymore. When you watch something on streaming, is that there was 2 or 3 scenes in the film where they throw up just a flash of an image when something's happening. So it's like a subliminal image that if you were sitting in the theater, you would have no urge to go back and rewind. Part of your brain would be like, oh, did I really see that?
Yeah.
And then it's already gone. But when you're at home, you're like, did I really see that? And you just press a button, you go back 10 seconds. You're not rewinding. You just click, see it again, click, see it again. You know what I mean? So some of that magic is taken away. Some of that stuff that would really work in the theater doesn't work at home because you have the remote in your hand.
Whenever anybody talks about that, I can't help but think of Fight Club. When Brad Pitt's up in the projection room splicing in frames of porn into like Disney films and shit.
Yeah.
That movie's so fucking good.
That movie's dope.
Anyway, sorry.
No, and the other, I think I talked about in our chat, the other issue that I had is like she was filming a video about Alzheimer's, and the whole movie like takes you through this girl is filming it is in the entire thing. And because it turned into a possession, you know that she wouldn't have made the video about Alzheimer's. Like she would have stopped turning this thing into her project, right? Because it wasn't Alzheimer's. And there were moments in the first like half hour of the movie where they cut in footage about Alzheimer's, like she had finished the video and edited it and spliced it together. And she wouldn't have done, like, I was just like, she wouldn't have done that. Like, unless it just didn't make sense to me. And then the other thing that pissed me off, just drove me crazy. And I said I should rewatch the Blair Witch Project because of this, is that in all the scenes that were cam footage, like handheld cam footage, every now and then there would be background music and background noise for ambiance. And I'm like, if you want this to feel real, that can't be there.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work with the background noise.
If you're doing the found
whole
footage
point of the
thing,
video.
Yeah. And so like that turned me off a little bit too. Like the movie itself, like if you took away the flaws that I had with it, I kind of liked it. I thought it was pretty decent. But it did have its flaws for sure. Now the acting was solid. The lady that played the lady that played Deborah Logan, she was dope. She kicked ass. Like I don't know how old she actually was, but she was believably like 80.
Yeah.
But believably badass at the same time as she got more and more possessed.
Yes.
So I don't know what was your take on it?
So this movie is basically for the last like honestly between like 2009 and 2019, like just in general, I liken those years to my Jon Snow years. All I did was work, eat, sleep, and shit. Like I'm just being real. Like I was almost like I was away from general society, just grinding out here in New York. Anyway, so one of the things that
lost your audio. Is that me?
Oh, can you hear me? Hello?
I think it's you, Kevin. I can hear all you guys.
That's funny. Okay, I'll just
Andrew, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, I think that's Kevin then. We can hear you,
cool.
Kevin.
Just keep going. I'm sure it's recording.
Okay, good. All right. So this is gonna make the show too. Anyway, so I remember seeing that scene that Kevin was talking about. Like I saw like online just like a GIF where it's a dark hallway and it's like flashlight, and all of a
A
sudden
what?
a dark a GIF.
There you If it's a peanut butter, buddy.
That was good. Um, a computer generated image that's animated, and
A
basically
graphical
you
image
see
format.
You see like this weird ass penguin looking motherfucker, because it looks like Penguin from like Batman Returns, right? But she's possessed, and her mouth opens, and it's like you see a little girl, and her head's like being engulfed by this fucking mouth of this old ass woman. And
Yeah,
I'm
it
like,
looks like a snake coming down and like slowly just kind of
yeah,
eating her head.
yeah, like a boa constrictor, or whatever, right?
Yeah,
So I'm like, what the fuck is going on with horror these days? Like, I was like, what the hell? So finally, many years later, I'm like, okay, where is this from? So I Google, and
It's
it's
an
like
homage to Beetlejuice.
it's like the Taking of Deborah Logan. So I finally like watched this movie, and I gotta say, Deborah Logan herself, I'm being so random, but Deborah Logan looks like if Nancy Wheeler from Stranger Things like grew up and it was like 80 years old. Like she has the same kind of like delicate features, a whole like triangle head with
it's super slim and just
Well,
like all scrawny. Yeah.
It's interesting. That actress is Jill Larson.
How old is she?
She was born in 47.
Oh, she's old. Yeah.
Yeah, she's been on she was on All My Children from 89 to 2011.
Good for her.
And other than that, she's been in this and Shutter Island. She
Oh,
was
nice.
in and some other Where the World Might, like she's been in a couple other weird things.
Well, she kicked
That was-
ass, man.
That was the other thing that turned me
Oh,
off
she
a
was
little
in
bit
Vinyl.
because
It was just awesome.
I've heard of that. But that was the other thing
Vinyl's
that
amazing.
turns me off with found footage films is that if you cast somebody that I recognize, you lose some of that magic too.
That was smart.
And,
They did that.
and the daughter, Deborah Logan's daughter, I've seen in stuff before. So I was like, oh,
okay.
She looks like a Sarah Paulson knockoff almost. Like she's, but I've seen her before, so that was a little bit of a turnoff.
She just reminds me of people.
What's the daughter? Was the daughter Sarah Logan?
Yeah.
Okay, that's Anne Ramsey.
Yeah.
And she was in A League of Their Own. She's Helen Haley, the I think the girl that couldn't, no, the one who had the husband that came back. She was in A League of Her Own. She was in Planet of the Apes. She was one of the lieutenants in that. Like you recognize.
She's been around. Like she's been around enough that I've seen her before. That was another thing.
Lisa Stemple and Mad About You.
That doesn't help. But like that's one of the things that made the Blair Witch Project work, and I always go back to that with found footage. But they were nobodies. Like they made that movie for fucking nothing.
And same thing with Paranormal Activity. So it's like, you want those nobodies. And again, this actually felt a little too produced, in my opinion, to be really legit found footage. So again, I don't regret watching the movie. It's fine. It was a decent enough movie. It definitely depicted like fucked up possession for sure. But is it essential? No. But I do think that if you got the time and you want to see a possession movie,
it's not bad.
Why not?
And I like you said, I fucking love the sound guy who at one point is like, this shit's fucked up. You're going to pay me more or I'm out.
Yes.
And like he bitches and finds, so she's like, yeah, I'll pay you more. And then something fucked up happens again. And he's like, you know what? No. He's like, I don't need your fucking money. The other guy's like, he's like, dude, you need the money. He's like, no, I fucking don't. Jumps in his Ford Aerostar and fucking takes off. He's like, I am the fuck up out of here. And you never see him again.
Nope.
That's fucking awesome.
Legit note out like a fucking smart person.
So. I think because I don't watch a lot of these movies, does that ever happen in these movies? Is there anybody that ever
usually not?
No.
Or if somebody tries to
investigate.
I don't understand.
If somebody tries to leave, they usually end up stuck somewhere and then murdered. Like you don't get away in these cases. And in this case, the dude was like, "Nah, dog." He's like,
That's fucking. That is like, so I gotta go. To me. I'd be out.
Yeah. And I think the video guy ultimately bails right near the end too, because at the end it's just her. It's just the two women. It's just the two women. The sheriff gets murdered.
Yes.
And so it's the two women going after Deborah. And it's a decent ending. What I didn't quite understand is how, when she tried to eat the little girl, how that possessed the little girl. Because like at the very end, you have that moment, like at the birthday.
Same as the nun too. Like I guess they scratched him or something. Like she imprinted her.
Yeah.
Like and so yeah, if the demon fucks you, like not literally, but like, the demon fucks with you,
maybe
doesn't kill you, you're probably possessed. Like it left some sort of
you can't win. You bump into a demon, you're like, fuck.
Same thing with the antlers. Like the antlers, like fucked up fucking Jesse Plemons, and then like Jesse Plemons is like, like at the end of the movie, because like the Skinamarink or whatever the fuck it is, the Wendigo, the Wendigo fucking didn't kill him.
You say Oswego? Isn't that a city in Canada?
Probably.
No, I think it's in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. Same thing.
It's my favorite pair of shoes ever.
Southern Canada is just Minnesota is just South Canada.
It actually really
is. Yeah. Okay, kids.
Here we are.
So we've had our fun, we've had our shenanigans. But before we totally get into the meat of The Last of Us, I want to give Andrew a chance to talk about episode 3, because you were not here for the Bill and Frank discussion, and that was arguably one of the best episodes of television
history
in a very long time, at least.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get your take on that before we jump into the next 2 episodes, because God loves me and gave me.
They could. No, let Andrew go first before we.
All right, and I'll be super quick because I almost feel guilty now because we've been doing a lot of talking about horror and everything else. So basically, it was an amazing episode, and I really needed the rest. That's why I didn't join last week. But I knew I was gonna miss talking about it. I'm gonna nerd out and basically say that episode 3 was a Myers-Briggs fucking
smorgasbord.
It was so good, and I'll tell you why. So first of all, there's the intuitives, the N types, and there's the sensors, the S types. And both Joel and Bill are S types, okay? But they're slightly different, but they're very mirrored to each other, okay? Now, the ISTP, which is Bill, which is also Wolverine's personality, by the way, a post-apocalypse is for them, holy shit, it's game time. It is on. I am so happy. And you see the glee in him once the Fedra people leave and he just has a town to himself. He's I've been ready for this shit.
He's like a kid in a candy store.
He was a kid in a candy store, and I was happy for him because honestly, that's how I, as an introvert, felt. Let's be real. When quarantine happened, I was like,
dude, it did not bother me the way it bothered the rest of the world.
No, I was like, oh my god, I can't see people's faces. Everyone's sad. Even Saturday Night Live's all fucking sad. During and I'm just yo, I am a cell phone plugged into its charger all the time. My older brother would be killing me. Andrew, don't say that shit in public. That's weird. People don't understand that. Anyway, going back to Bill. So Bill, I get him. Okay. Now, he's doing his thing. He's thriving, okay? Because, again, if you're an S-type, you probably aren't as computer-oriented. You can use computers, but the thing is, you like more real-life shit, whereas N-types are more abstract, and that's why we're thriving right now in this digital age, but most of the world is S, which is why they're having all these weird shits with, addiction and anxiety and everything else. Anyway, so Bill's doing his thing, okay? ISCP, Wolverine by himself. Wolverine he can get along on his own, right? But Wolverine does have a heart. But if you get into that heart, he's fucking putty, whether you're Daphne Keenan's X-23 or whether you're fucking Frank. So basically, Frank shows up, and Frank is actually a very complimentary type. I'm going to call fucking Pete out. Frank and Pete are both ENFPs. What does that mean? ENFPs are
Pete's gay.
Totally. No, ENFPs are the most congenial motherfuckers on the planet. ENFPs can get along with everyone. They have such a good sense of people, and they know how to meet people where they're at. They pay attention. So when basically he's found in the pit, and he has his hands up, that was just such a great moment because it was so tense. Because the thing is, Bill is so untrusting and cautious. but he was able, like, literally, like, Bill so skillful like an ENFP does, ingratiates himself. He goes from, can I at least have a shower? He has a shower, okay? They're doing his thing. And already Bill is like uncomfortable, but kind of liking the fact that there's somebody here, but then you're seeing some little uncomfortableness, and at first I was kind of like wondering what's going on here. And the thing is, Bill figured it out before even I did. Okay. So Bill then was like, can I have something to eat? They're making the food. By the way, Bill's cooking, yo, like I was like,
looks some good
I
shit.
would love to be eating your shit because you clearly know how to make food. Your shit is keto. It's like fucking beef and shit and vegetables. It looks amazing.
Bunny rabbit.
Right? Oh, yeah. And then the piano scene. Apparently, I almost feel like that was Frank feeling Bill out. Like, okay, if you know this shit,
for sure,
you're gay. So basically, like, so once like he starts playing, and then it was just a great scene. Okay, so I just had to like call that out because like that was just such great storytelling. Now going to like the juxtaposition between Joel and Bill. Okay, so ISTP versus ISTJ. That's it. They're different. Okay? So Bill, because he's a P, he's not so locked in. He's not a very like he's independent, but he can pivot, depending on the situation. So Bill, when Frank's like, yo, I want to fucking go, like Bill's like hurt, but at the end of the day, he's like, you know what? Fine. Like, I guess you win, but you know what? You were my point, so I'm gonna go with you. Like, so that's what happened. Whereas Joel, as a J, he's more of a straight arrow. So he probably would have found a way to carry on. And when you see the two of them together, and like, Bill has the gun pointing at Joel, it's just funny to see how, of course, they would kind of clash because they're kind of different types. But Joel is more like Joel. I think it was Joel even saying you need to like do your fence. Like they were just really complicated characters. And I wish I had been there last week because I would talk more about it. But anyway, and you guys are being so nice to me while letting me talk so damn much. And I hope people listening to this show are also not getting sick of me talking so much. But again, I just had to get this out there. Anyway, Bill. Yeah, if you want to know about Myers-Briggs, just know that those characters are like textbook of what they are. So one more time, Frank, ENFP, Bill, ISTP, Joel, ISTJ. I haven't figured out Ellie just yet, but I love her and she's hilarious. I do think this episode's going to win an Emmy, just like the way Sanji Napero from Black Mirror did. It also was such a triumph for representation because the thing is, it didn't make a thing like, oh, we're gay, gay rights, blah, blah. No. It was just like, yes, we're just two people in love, and it's a real love. It's a real bond. And it was heartbreaking. It was just heartbreaking to see like it go to shit at the end, but at least they had a long life together, and it was a full life together. And I frankly don't think that's ever been done on television before. So it was groundbreaking. So be very proud, Kevin, that your show, your franchise, your game is making history by not only being the most expensive television show ever made in Canada, but also just breaking new ground as far as representation is concerned. So that's all I have to say about episode 3.
Oh, wait, this is being filmed in Canada?
Yeah. Oh, the whole thing was filmed in Canada, yeah.
Oh, no wonder it's just such a desolate fucking wasteland.
See, that's fucked up. Especially since you've got some Canadian fans on this podcast. I'm joking. I know.
Oh, I know that was aimed right at fucking Leah and Stephanie. There's just no. That was fired right across the bow. I love my Canadians, and I love Canada. It's a wonderful place.
Hey, I'm a big fan of maple syrup, so you guys are dope.
Fucking, you know my thoughts on Tim Hortons. So,
although Canadian bacon is just ham. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And it's macaroni and cheese, not Kraft dinner. Fuck off.
Yeah, that's just stupid. The other thing about episode 3, which one of the things that I loved about episode 3, and it infuriated some other people, is that it's not from the original game. Now,
at all.
The story is implied, not the same way. As a matter of fact, in the game, and I talked about this last week, but in the game, Frank and Bill have a falling out. So when Bill meets Joel, he's alone. They go through their adventure in the game, which is, a significant part of the story. And And then you come to this house and you find Frank hanging. He's hung himself because he got bit and he doesn't want to turn. So he kills himself. And then you find a note that Frank wrote to Bill, and he's basically like, fuck you. I hate you. Da, 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 da. Like it's very angry. It's a very angry note. And so it's different, but the same. Like you can tell they had a relationship. He calls him his partner all the time. There's all the implications that it wasn't a business partner. They were, whatever. And to the credit of Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann, they sat down and said, we can do this better. And so they did. And obviously they did, because it was fucking amazing. When we get to episode 5, I'll talk about a part where I think they actually missed the mark. For as much as I like the episode, coming from the gamer standpoint. So I'll talk about that in a minute. But that takes us to episode 4, where at the end of episode 3, Ellie finds Frank's gun, and sneaks it. So they are off on their little journey. We start off with a little road trip, a little camping trip. Ellie's got the joke book, which is a part of the game, straight out of the game. The way it works in the game is really interesting, because you can move along, and there's a lot of dialogue that can happen in the game or not happen based on what you do. Like if you sit around and stand around, characters will talk if you're just standing there. Or sometimes you'll have the option to click, I think it's the square button, and they'll talk. And if you don't do it, if you're not paying attention, you just miss that dialogue. You go through the game, you don't miss anything. It's background dialogue. But in the game, Ellie has a bunch of jokes. She has a joke book that she finds at Bill's place, and she shares the jokes. So the scene in the car where they're driving and she finds the dirty magazine, oh my God, how does he walk with that thing? Fucking hilarious. Every bit of dialogue, every single moment of that scene, straight out of the game, to the point where she threw it out the window, all exactly like the game. When they're driving later and she says something, and then he's like, why don't you take a nap? And she's like, I'm not tired. And then it instantly cuts to her being asleep, straight out of the game. So there's some really, really awesome moments like that.
It's been kind of cool. I've been trying to avoid any kind of spoiler about it at all. And I gotta say, this is probably one of the most respectful fan bases I've ever seen, because I haven't seen a lot of people talking about the story. Maybe just because the game is old enough that people figure if you know it, you've played it, you know the storyline, blah, 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 blah. It's out there. But I feel like there's just like even the memes about it where you see the comparisons where they do that are very, very out of context completely, so that it's just a still and you see it and it doesn't really give anything away. You're not like, oh shit, like it's just it's really, really neat. It actually does like almost make me want to buy a PlayStation and play the game, just because.
Hey, do you have a PlayStation 3?
No.
4?
I'm gonna Switch.
You are a Switch. Let's see. I'm so funny. Anyways, so the story jumps in, and they're doing their traveling. At one point when they're camping, Ellie has to light a fire. Joel's like, why am I going to tell you that's a dumbass idea? And she thinks it's because of the infected, and he's like, nah, it's people. And she's like, oh, what are they going to do, steal our food? And he's like, no, dude, it's going to be way worse than that. And that's all it said, and that's all you really hear about there. And then then we finally get into the town, and again, another scene that's almost straight out of the game is when you see the dude come out and he's asking for help, stumbling down in the street.
Oh, I figured that was right out of the game.
And Joel tells her to put the seatbelt on, charges him down, crashes into the building, all that straight out of the game. From there, for the most part, the rest of the episode is relatively different from the game. Like number one, it takes place in further east. It's not in Kansas City, but it doesn't really matter. It makes more sense in the show and the realism of them having the car that they would have got to Kansas City in that amount of time. So based on where they were trying to get to, that lines up. The gist of the story in that is the same, but it definitely is more drawn out in the episode. And we meet the absolutely fucking wonderful Melanie Linsky, the guy that plays her right hand man, Perry, the guy with the big beard and the slick
Dude,
back
he's
hair.
dope. I really dug him.
He is the original Tommy. He's Joel's brother from the video game.
Nice.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah. So it's a cool little get in there. But I've broken down the episode. So again, you guys are seeing this for the first time. So what do you guys think of the episode so far?
Oh, I loved it. Oh yeah, Pete, you go first, actually.
No, go ahead, please.
Okay, so I loved it. I again, Ellie's hilarious. I love jokes. I love corny ass jokes. If you're my Facebook friend, you'd see that I do lots of like dad jokes and stuff like that. So I liked the fact that like Ellie took her ability to kind of just crack that shell, that hard shell of Joel, and really get into his heart. And I'm jumping around a bit, but like I love that scene at the end when they're like in the sleeping bag, and it's on Joel's face, and then she's like, like why is diarrhea running in your family or something like that? Like,
yeah,
it runs in your genes.
It's hereditary. It's hereditary. Diarrhea is
hereditary. Yeah, why is diarrhea hereditary? It runs in your genes, and you see him just shit-eating grin. And
that's when he breaks. Like, it's the first one, because you see it earlier when they do the scarecrow joke.
Yeah,
he rolls over and he smiles, but that's it. Like, he doesn't give into it. Like, he smiles, he has the moment, and then we move on. But there at the end, he fucking can't. Like, he's just like, fuck.
It's
or even even the little scene where she's like, oh my god, why is it sticky? And he turns around, she goes,
so funny, because he's like, and she's like, I'm fucking with you.
Her American accent
is
so perfect. I want to know what she watched, because she says curse words are very, very you can use them, you can overuse them. Certain people saying certain curse words, like Samuel L. Jackson, there's certain things that he says that you're like this. She says motherfucker very, very well with an American accent.
What's funny is she doesn't always sound like Ellie from the game, but when she says motherfucker, she sounds exactly like Ellie from the game. It's crazy.
It's like, she's an impressive little actress. Like, I just can't.
She's incredible. She's incredible.
This episode was great. I mean, it's hard because I almost feel like you really should just talk about the two episodes as one episode.
They really are kind of one episode,
because it really was like I know why they split it up, but I almost feel like this could have just been one like supersized 90-minute movie length episode. It's so well done.
I want to jump in. Keep going.
No, it really, like, Kathleen at first seems so put together, and like obviously she's the rebel leader, of a group at this point, but you still feel like she's sane. She's trying to find someone. Let's hunt these people. Like you're getting it, and I'm like, okay, I'm on board with this chick. Like, I love this, and I love Melanie Linsky. So
well, and I love too, since you're kind of putting together two episodes. I love the way that by the end of the second episode, when you compare her to Henry, why their stories work and why they're both the way they are. Right? Yeah. Like, she's so pissed at Henry and she wants his fucking face on a fucking platter because he's responsible for her brother dying. So like, she's not wrong. Like, that's the thing about like this world is like, I mean, she is wrong. Like, going after somebody and trying to kill him is wrong, but like,
no,
her justification is like human. Like, it's a human justification. It's like in episode 4 when this the last guy left that Joel has to, and Ellie shoots him in the back, and then he instantly I mean, he becomes so fucking human where he's like, I'm sorry, we'll let you go. I won't do
Oh,
anything.
quick.
Just let me go see my
Yeah.
mom. Like you're just like, fuck. Cause like that's real. Like that's a real human response. Like, I'm fucked. I fucked up. Like, please, just, and he's begging for his life. He was just doing what he thinks he's supposed to do. Like he's just
And going back actually to the Bella praise. Okay, so the reason why Bella is killing it, I think, in this show is that you're seeing all the dimensions of the character's personality. Because on one hand, she's a little shit. On the other hand, she's really sincere. And then on one hand, she's kind of tough. But on the other hand, yo, she just shot dude, right? And then like Joel's like realizing she's going through some shit. And I love how he's like, I'm not good at this. And she's like, you're really not, dude. Like, she's just like, you're really not helping right now.
She is
Was great.
They captured. I'm actually very going back. Sorry to cut you off on this one, but going back to praise to the original video game at this point, obviously having not played it, but they did a 14-year-old girl very, very well. like impressively so. It's a
if you
character
listen to the
believable.
podcast, oh fuck, I wish I would have written it down. But I think it was Craig Mazin or maybe it was Neil Druckmann. So one of their friends refers to the age of 14-year-old as their description of it is fuck you, tuck me in. Yeah. So like you're so like up against everybody, you're like fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, but at the same time you're a kid. And so you're like, put me to bed and love me. Like, it tucked me in for the night. And it was such a great description that I was like,
that captures it. Yeah. That captures the character.
It's just a little, concise thing that I thought was brilliant.
So yeah, I just think that, as well as like, because you guys, I've said like how when I watch something, I ask myself, who would I be and what decisions would I make? So like in this world, I'm sorry, like I would be Fedra. I know I would be. I'd be Fedra. But like, and we can move on. I guess it's episode 5 now. Like apparently the Kansas City Fedra were fucking assholes. Okay, like so they got what they deserved, but at the same time, it's like I don't know if the Kathleen regime was any better because like even her brother apparently was a good dude. He was saying, yo, forgive, like do the right thing. But she led her people to a fucking massacre. So I think that,
but also Perry makes that point where he says, we all loved your brother. He was a great man, but you actually did something.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's a catch-22, right? Like it's so
true.
There's the whole point is there's no winning in this world. It doesn't matter.
Oh yeah.
Like what you're doing, like it's a hard world and it has not recovered from what happened. You still have people with too much power and you've got people with too much anger and you've got, and it's just this big battle. So it's crazy. It's crazy to me. And I feel like it's so accurate. Like one thing that I always think about, after COVID, I became a gun owner. I have one pistol in my house that is in a safe that I have never fired. I've never even taken to the range, which is probably stupid. I should probably make sure I know how to fire it.
Yeah.
But the reason that I bought it is in the news. There were people going door to door in the early parts of COVID with fucking machetes and knocking on people's door and doing crazy shit. And that was just fucking COVID. Like that wasn't the end of the world. That wasn't fucking, so you see this shit happening and you're like, okay, everything that's happening in the show would totally happen. Like it's crazy.
So basically being real, like, so also during COVID, once Trump said, like, when the looting starts, the shooting starts, that like when your president is tweeting that, I was people hitting me up from Canada, like straight up, like, hey man, like if you want to come back out here, like we will totally house you. And I was thinking to myself, could this be the beginning of like Sarajevo shit? So it's like, yeah, like you're right, Kev. Like I think that there is a thin veneer of like civility in civilization. All it takes is the right things to happen, and all of a sudden chaos. So I hear
Oh,
you.
dude, Lord of the Flies all the way.
Yes.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure. For
it's
sure. Absolutely.
it's funny. I have a buddy Maurice,
Is
who
he
was in
crazy and old?
no,
Damn it.
he used to work for me a long time ago at a different job that I have now, but he was in Desert Storm. And the one thing he talked about, because we talked about all these like prepper people and the militia guys and this and that, and he said the thing is, like, it's one thing for these guys to train and they think they're all ready, but when the shooting actually starts and the bombs actually start dropping, you see a different side of people. It's a completely different world. And he's like all this weird shit that people talk about, like the breakdown of society. He's like, it'll happen so fast if something actually went down. He's like, and all these people who really think they're hard, nope,
Yeah.
they'll find out quickly.
Well, because there's two kinds of people. There's the people that think they're going to go out and fight everybody, right? And then you've got the Bill. Bill, he was like, I am protecting this spot. He's like, I don't need to fight anybody. I just need you to stay the fuck away.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like he did not go out looking for battle. Right? He just wanted his shit left alone.
Incredibly impressed also with the fucking fence that he built around like that town or the section of the town, however he did it. Like that's
ingenuity, man. No, he this is a guy who actually I was happy for him. I think that society, like, I think he lived at his mom's house or some shit. Like, I think that society was better for him. His life was better post-apocalypse.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
definitely.
You know, I don't. Life is not. I keep saying life is not a one-size-fits-all affair. And you know, there's people who can adapt and even thrive. And he throve. That's not a word. But anyway,
it is now.
It is now. That's
he throve.
He throve.
But I know both Merriam and Webster. We're gonna make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess we can go on to now. I guess Henry and Sam, because that was some badass shit, man.
Oh man, so that story is dope. So in the game, Sam is not deaf. Okay. So he interacts with Ellie a lot more.
But I love that interaction.
But a lot of the kindness and sweetness that they have in the show is just spread out in the game, right? Okay. They're together longer. But some of that stuff is there. This comes to the point of the story that kind of bums me out. It's the only thing so far that disappointed me, because there was one thing that I wanted from the show and I'm not going to get it. So they glossed over it in this episode as a nod to the fans of the game, which I get and appreciate, but there is a fucking underlying story in the game that is absolutely incredible and heartbreaking and amazing, and it wasn't there. So when they go into the sewers, number one, that doorway that's all painted for all the kid shit, and they're going to the doorway and they're going to that room, that's straight out of the game. That looks exactly like the game. And there's a picture on the wall, and it says like David and Ish. So the character's name is Ishmael, and for the entire rest of the story, his name is Ish. So when you're in the game and you go into the sewers, you spend a lot more time in the sewers. And you find notes, and you find these things that are Ish's story. And it's about him getting in there, meeting this community, becoming part of this community. There is some tragically sad and dark shit that you come across in the sewers in the game. And I kind of wanted there to be a flashback episode about all of that, because it's such an amazing story.
Like they did Frank and Bill.
Yeah. And funny enough, I think that's probably the reason that they didn't bother, is because they'd already done that with Frank and Bill. So if you do that with Ish, it doesn't maybe work, and it feels like you're not telling Joel and Ellie's story, which is what this is about. So like, I get it, but man, it was the one thing I wanted to see put to film. So like, it bummed me out that it wasn't there, but it doesn't take away from the episode. Like if I watch the episode itself, fucking excellent.
Kevin, can I say something though?
Yeah.
Like I totally thought, and Evangelion has this too, by the way. Like I totally thought, why try to shoehorn it? Why don't we just make another like show or a spinoff or a special episode that's based on that? Give them a whole thing. Like I think they can come back to it, because I was thinking about like who were these people? Like that's what I was thinking the whole time. Like the classroom and the crayons, and I'm like, okay, some shit went down here. I want to know more about that. It was world building to me. So to me, it's like I would have hope. I would have hope that maybe they'll come back and tell that story because based on what you just said, it just galvanized my own thinking about this is a story that needs to be told, but it has to be told on its own platform versus within the context of this show.
Yeah, like I said, I watch it and like when I was done because I knew when it was coming, I knew when they were going to get there.
Yeah, you were hoping for it.
And they showed the picture, and then they moved on, and like they never talked about Ish at all. And I was like, damn it, because it really was. It was the one thing. As soon as they started producing it, I was like, I want to see that. And so it sucked, but like I said, when it was over and I was sitting back thinking about it, I was like, I get it. But at the same time, I cried at my Cheerios.
Trade-offs.
But that whole scene was amazing. Like you got Ellie and Sam getting closer. They're learning how to communicate. They play soccer.
Yeah.
They do all this stuff, and you get to see Ellie. There's very few moments in the show where you get to see Ellie be a kid. Right.
Completely a kid, not like a kid traveling with an old dude, like where she's just a kid with another kid. Yeah. It was neat.
Yeah. It's good. But yeah. So what you guys think about old Henry and Sam?
Well, I mean, I wanted to say like this episode in general, I was on the edge of my seat, especially during the shootout in the house while they're behind the truck or the vehicle. I'm worried about their safety the whole time. I just thought like I kept forgetting they were siblings. I totally saw them as like father and son.
And they have that relationship for sure, even in the game. Like they are brothers in the game too, but there's definitely a father-son feel.
Yeah. It was just tragic. I mean, super, super tragic and just sad, but I just saw them as necessary part of the game because again, without them, they probably wouldn't have gotten out of Kansas because that guy knew the tunnel system. But it also just illustrated the fucked up choices that people have to make that, because I think it was Henry. Yeah. Henry is the one who kind of sold out Kathleen's brother.
To save his own brother.
Exactly. That was the whole thing that was very interesting to me. And Kathleen has her little thing at the end there where she's like, "Oh, I understand it," but she just didn't care. Like,
she was
she's too pissed.
Didn't die.
Yeah.
Great acting, by the way. She sold me. She was unhinged. She was unhinged and just
obsessed.
Pure rage. That's what she was.
Mm-hmm.
Pure cold rage. She's like,
you can tell because in episode 4, when she comes back in after something goes sideways, she just walks in and shoots the doctor.
Yeah.
She's like, fuck it, fuck you, like,
which is insane because in a world like that,
you need a doctor.
You need a doctor.
Which is why she's unhinged. She was
exactly. Like you don't just need a doctor. You need someone who's like training the doctors of the future.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah.
Like, because that guy's starting to get old. So that was like that's a very that's a huge loss to like the entire world.
Which is why I'm also tend to not be for the fucking rebels, dude. I'm sorry. I feel like rebels are more short-sighted and not thinking big picture. They're just thinking like now, freedom now. Okay, you have your freedom. What now? I don't know. Like they don't care. They just want to overthrow the warlords. Like let's think about this, okay? But apparently, again, Fedra brought this upon themselves. I'm not defending Kansas Fedra, but I am saying if someone's a little too revolutionary, I'm like, like revolutionary. I'm not Mr. Revolutionary. It's just not my thing. And I think the show did a good job of displaying what happens when that happens. It's not always better. Sometimes it's worse. Sorry, Pete.
What you got, Pete? What do you got about Henry and Sam?
I loved that relationship. I thought it was nice and complex. It was fun watching the two of them interact. At first, like for half a moment, I guessed, like I almost felt like I didn't realize what was going on. obviously, because I didn't. And there was part of me that, like, when she goes into the little hideaway space and sees all the superhero characters, all of a sudden I was like, oh wait, like this is where my mind went, because this is how this show has me guessing like this. I was like, oh shit, they totally set this up to fucking, like, she's crazy, and this dude Perry is totally handling and managing her, because we haven't had the whole story leached out at this time. This is the very beginning of the episode when she walks into the room and she sees the cans. Like, Perry like directs her where to go. And I'm like, oh shit, this fucking lady is straight up, like, this dude is handling her, and they made up some shit with superheroes that a kid from today would never even know about, because the way she, like, picked up the drawing and, like, stared at it for a minute, and just the look in her eye, I was like, oh dude, she's gonna lose her shit when she walks out, because she's gonna figure out that, like, Superman doesn't exist now, and this kid looks, like, that's where my brain went. And she walks out and she's like, oh no. And then boom, cut to, we get the flashback, and now, oh no, it's a fucking kid and his dad, and they have comic books, like the whole thing. You're like, this is, I don't know, I just really really like this episode. I thought the pacing of it was absolutely perfect, because the right before it was going to get slow, and you're watching the time tick down, and you still got a good 10-15 minutes left of the episode, that you're like, wait, something still has to happen. Boom, that the bullet sounds, it hits the car, and it's on. I will say, I did not expect the exploding truck and the crashing into the ground and the giant horde
So
coming out.
I have a theory about that, and it's not. I haven't listened to the podcast yet, so I don't know if I'll be proven right or wrong. But my thinking is that's the people that were underground, and so that's why when they show it in episode 4, he goes into that basement and the ground is kind of lurching.
Yeah. Oh, all the people that Fedra forced underground, like they were saying.
Yeah,
all the
they got turned.
that's exactly who that was. Yeah. No, I knew.
And so
I did.
And then you get this guy, Mr.
Okay,
Bloater
so
Man.
that was the only thing about this show so far. It's the only thing about this show so far that has seemed just a little, I don't want to say cheesy, but kind of cornball. It was like, it sounds bad, but all of a sudden there's a giant one of these things.
So it's not explained in the show, but it's explained in the game.
Okay, see, that was my thing, because all of a sudden I'm just like, mini boss, like, clearly.
It is at one point, and then it just becomes normal. But the idea is that it's one that has been stuck. It's been in this form longer, so it's been taking on more of the fungus, more of the everything like it. So it's been mutating longer over time and becoming this thing. So they do cover it in the game. One thing they took out in the game, even though Ellie actually says it in the second episode, in the game, it could throw spores at you. It throws like its own spores at you, but because they took spores out of the show,
right?
They didn't bother with that. But there's the scene when it kills Perry and it literally rips his head off. That's straight out of the game. When you're Joel and the bloater kills you, it grabs you both sides of your jaw and rips your fucking head off, and it's totally gruesome. So the way they did it like, you saw all the gamers were like,
nice.
Fuck yeah. Like, it was like, and so, I mean, it was dope. Like, I think it's Joel that explains like how bloaters are what they are in the game. So I'm curious to see, because they basically just moved on right after that. So maybe it'll come up in another episode, or maybe they'll just leave it and be like, you should have played the game.
Well, Henry, no, it might come up again, because Henry gave us this is the first time we've actually heard one classified. They called that one, the ones that they fought and escaped from in the museum, they call them clickers.
Yeah.
And so that's the first time we've actually gotten like a classification on one of these guys. So more could be coming. Like I don't know. Don't completely discount. Again, like you said, you haven't listened to the podcast yet. They could address it, but don't discount that in some other way. The story that you want is actually going to come back.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a feeling it won't. I have a feeling they're going to leave that as a nod to the gamers. But it is a bummer because the story is so incredible. Like I said, heartbreaking. Like there's a scene when you in the game you come into this section of a room and you find a note, and it's the guy's like just like, I'm sorry, I tried to protect everybody. The clickers are coming. If they don't come, I'll make sure the kids don't turn. And what you see is a pile of children's bodies because this guy ultimately decided that the monsters were coming, and the only thing he could do to protect them from turning was to kill them. Just like the end of The Mist. Like if you think it's the film The Mist, they're just like, fuck, the only thing I can do to make it easy for these kids is to kill them myself, and then kills himself. And but I mean, it's such a tragic, like, little mini story that, like, you could completely miss in the game if you weren't going around and picking up these pieces that tell you the story. You just walk through the tunnels and not even know. So it was a trip. But then we get to the end of the episode and we get our heartbreak, man. You get your oof.
Well, but it was. I mean, it does show you in this world, and it shows you what Ellie's life has been and where she is when she's just like she actually thought this might work. And for a second there, as a viewer, you're like, oh shit, this is going to be cool. Now it's going to be 4 against the world. And, because he's deaf. So you're like when he's staring off out the window.
Thought that shit was going to work.
No
part of me thought it was going to work.
Yeah.
Oh, I
was like, it's a wrap.
It's actually, it was a good storytelling idea though, because it shows, number one, it shows her naivety.
Exactly.
But also it's not something that happens in the game.
Yeah.
So like her doing that in the show was, Craig Mazin sitting there with Neil Druckmann being like, well, what if she just tried? She doesn't know why she's immune. So what if she just tries to do it? And all she wants to do is help this kid. Like,
correct.
In
any way possible. I was surprised at how fast he turned. That's what I wasn't ready for. Like, because to me, again,
it was overnight. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know the stories that well. So like, I thought maybe he might be more like, but he was just like he was ready. But like,
where he was, they talked about that. So they broke that down that within 8 hours.
It's actually in the first episode. They have that chart that says depending on where you get bit will change how long it takes.
Your exposure thing. So
like the neck is like 1 to 2 hours. Like it's super fast.
Got it. But it was just so sad because like he knew. He's like, how like he was scared and he right by the monster inside, and that's how she finds out. It was just so selfless because it hurts to cut your fucking palm. She does it anyway because she's selfless. But then, like when he's sitting there, and then that heartbreaking when he just writes, "I'm sorry." He wrote, "I'm sorry," I think, on the pad because he knew. I think that was him. Like, was that him who wrote that?
It was on the pad. It was either her or him. It's possible that it was him.
Yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me if it was.
Because he even said, "Will you stay up all night with me?" And of course, she falls asleep. So then she wakes up, and I think she was almost like feeling bad. Oh fuck, I fell asleep. I promised to stay up all night with you, but he was just sitting there facing away. Like it was just, and then like of course, like at first, Henry's like, I don't know what Henry was doing. He was just out of his mind. But like he's pointing the gun at Joel, and then he realized what he has to do. But then once he does it, then he's like, it was just pure realistic tragedy.
It wasn't even just that. It's what he literally, like, everything that Kathleen said in her little speech and everything fucking came true. None of it mattered.
Yep. Every bad thing that he did to save his brother
meant absolutely nothing.
Meant nothing.
They got out, they fought their way. The entire, like, realistically, Kansas City's fallen now. That's it. That horde is out. The horde has access to the city. All those people that are in there, it's done.
Yeah. That becomes, it's no longer QZ. It's just another place that you can't go. It's like when you were in the Boston QZ, that was safe. But when they went out into Boston proper, it was a mess.
And it's all Henry's fault. And it's everything he did was for absolutely nothing.
But he did it for a reason that like anybody would do.
Exactly. It's what
You
Joel.
know,
Well, it's what's motivating Joel right now. He's going to, Wyoming to find his brother.
But the difference is Joel isn't like Joel. Here's the thing: like Joel is not actively killing anyone. I love when Joel's like, "Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it." Oh, fuck, boom! Like because that guy was. It's like Joel, like he has a code. You know what I'm saying? And that's the difference.
I think though. Did you watch the preview for next week?
I did, but keep going.
I think just with stuff that like, the little snippets, and of course, you cut a trailer for a show like this to make you think one thing.
Sure.
But I think we're gonna see maybe why Joel might have turned to that code, because I think Joel's like we knew Joel's led a rough life.
Yeah.
And a rough existence and done what he's had to.
Yeah.
But I don't think I think we're about to find out Joel is not quite the good guy.
But here's the difference I'll make though, and I'm so glad we're here because like Joel, his decisions, in my opinion, are rarely emotional. They're usually calculated. And I think where people go wrong most of the time is when they lead with emotion. I talked about this on Lost, with the fucking kid, the tweaker or whatever. I think Kathleen is definitely on emotion. You see it happen to her. Henry, emotion again. I think that when you got to think this shit through. And I think Joel is someone who thinks shit through before he acts. And that's the difference. I mean, and even if you have to make a shady decision, at least the shady decision was calculated. And I think when Henry made a shady decision to turn in the fucking leader, that wasn't calculated. He was just like, I gotta save my brother. Noble, but not calculated. And that's all I'm saying. So I wanted to
let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
Would you let Daniel die?
That's a fucked up question to ask me on the podcast. But
I'd call him out by his name.
But honestly, I wouldn't. Here's how I'll answer that question. I wouldn't have turned in the leader of the resistance. That's how I answer the question. I'm not someone who says there's a binary way. There's got to be some other way. I wouldn't have turned in. So I'm not going to say I would have let him die, but I also wouldn't have made the decision that Henry made. That's my honest answer.
I ain't a fucking rat.
That too.
Yeah.
Stitches.
I really, it was nice and deep. And I did know though, I knew the minute he shot his brother, I knew he was going to kill himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew that was done. Nothing.
Yeah.
His brother was the only reason for him living. Like that was his reason for being. And that one hurt, man. It hurt like the opening episode. Like it's
yeah.
It's just you love somebody and then
the two of them, Henry and Sam, and I will say this, that is the one thing this show is getting incredibly good with already, is making you love characters in an incredibly short time span.
All right, can I say something really quick?
Yeah, please.
I know it's not true, but after I watched the show, I'm like, okay, I get it now. If you're black and you're lovable, your ass is dead. Like whether you're Sarah. I'm just saying, dude, there's a pattern. I know it's not true. There's other lovable people like fucking Frank. But then again, they were gay. Okay, if you're black or if you're gay or if you're anything that's not like, like whatever traditional, your ass is grass, dude. Okay,
hey, look, man, if you're Latino, you're rolling along because Joel's a Latino in this.
Yeah, okay, that's true.
Right?
No, I will, but I will say that is the one thing that is very interesting is that this show is very, very much like Game of Thrones is like everybody's gonna fucking die or has the potential to die at any goddamn moment.
Well, Ellie and Joel are safe, I think. They're safe.
I would assume they are because there's
I loved
Last of Us 2.
Dude. Like he just went stone face after I said that. That's awesome. Keep going. I'm sorry, Pete.
No,
world's full of secrets, man.
Fuck you, Kevin. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the one thing I am hoping. I mean, if we could just kind of veer off, but still in the same vein here, I'm actually So The Last of Us 2, Kevin, both you and Alex had said that the game was a little on the disappointing side
Not
compared
for
to
me. I liked it more than he did, for
okay.
sure. He replayed it and still didn't like it. I was not the same way. I liked it enough the first time. I think I still like the first game better, but in a lot of ways, the second game was the better game. But the first one is still
Okay.
more special to me.
Pacing wise, do you think they're going to make it through the first game in like a 10 episode season?
Oh, absolutely,
Is what you
absolutely.
think.
Looking at the things that
So the
the
game's like
snippets that they
halfway over at this
showed
point, then
and
basically.
the episode titles and things like that, I don't see any reason that this will not be the entire first game.
Okay.
They kind of did it all with the intention of, if we only get one season for some reason, we want to tell our whole story. There is a good chance that that the next game, the next two seasons will be the next game. They'll break it up into two seasons because it is
So
a
this
longer.
already is going to be 3 seasons.
Well, we know it got a second season. And to be fair, if they want to tell the second game in two seasons, because it is a longer game, it is a larger story. No one's going to tell them no at this point, right? If they come to HBO and they say we need 3 seasons, HBO is going to say okay. And there are very solid places that you can break that up.
Okay.
So I think it'll get 3 seasons, because I think they'll break it up, because there is more to tell in the second game than there is in the first game.
I just hope, my fear with this was something like this, is that they're going to take this and they're going to then go beyond.
Nope, they've already said they have absolutely no intention of telling anything that's not in the game. They may add a little bit to a story here and there, like they did with Bill and Frank,
Modified, but yeah.
but they are not going to tell a story that is not in the games.
Okay, that I respect and I dig, because I don't want to see, like, I know, like Andrew, world building. Like, obviously it's a phenomenal world that they've built and that they're showing us, but I want this story to be like done. I don't want a spin off. I don't want, like, I want this to just be its thing. And if it's 3 seasons, let it be 3 seasons and just tell the story and then stop. I don't want, like, don't cash
I agree.
grab this.
Yeah, don't start twisting it around and stuff. I mean,
Now, I
there's a
would say
few.
that being said, on one hand, if you wanted to tell different stories in this world, I might be amenable to that. Like, I think
That
this
was
world is
always my thing.
fascinating.
Is I said, when this was coming out, I was like, it either needs to be exactly like the game, because people will lose their shit,
If it's not,
or
yeah.
or it had to be other stories in this world. It could have been other people in other places doing other things, because then you're not messing with the mythology, right? This is something else, and that would have been fine. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think this is going to be a Game of Thrones thing. To a degree, I think Neil and Craig are cheating a little bit, because they already have the story, right? So they're not writing this as they go. They're tweaking it as they go, and they're making changes as they go to make sure that it's right. But it's they know what they're doing. Like, they know their story. If they go and do the second game, there's a beginning and a middle and an end to that. Like, there is a definitive end to the second game.
Nice. This really is an amazing show, and it's an amazing story that they're telling, and I would just like it to be finite. I don't know. Like, we see it, we get a lot of that with series and stories that get told now, where they're like, it's still making money. And you're like, the show should have ended 2 fucking seasons ago.
And to be fair, like, the Naughty Dog, the company that made the game, and Neil have said they don't know if they're making a third game. They will only do it if the story is exactly right. If it's exactly the story they want to tell, and it says the things that they want to say in the way they want to say it. Now, it will obviously be a few years, but I will definitely, when we get there, I will gladly tell you where I think the third game / story could go. I know what I would like to see it do. There are rumors that they are actually actively starting a third game now. But even if they do, it'll take a few years. It would be interesting if they could finish the game in time for the filming of the second season to finish, or third season to finish, because then maybe they would make one more season based on whatever story they're telling in the third game. But that would be the only way they would do it. They're sharing this story more than creating something new, right? Like they're taking this and sharing it with more people.
Nice.
So
I'll take it.
yeah, you will, and you'll like it.
No, I really have. Like, I know of course Mike started, but we were busting your and Alex's balls about the game. But I now get why you liked it. These are incredibly compelling characters, and the situations that the writers put them in, like, it's also just a really cool. I know we talked about this before. It's just a really cool zombie like mechanism. How it's just a fungus in the way it works, as opposed to the standard virus.
Cordyceps.
Well, and what's cool too is like this thing exists. Like not like this necessarily, but I mean this exists. This is a thing that's out there. So it's not wildly impossible. But to me, those are the best zombie stories too. The ones that are like, yeah, X happened, and now we're here. That was always the biggest disappointment with The Walking Dead for me, was that if you watch the first season of The Walking Dead, they get to the CDC and there's a dude there that is trying to figure out what happened, and then they never go back to that. I've heard that at the end of like this last season that maybe there's some discussion about that and they finally come back to it. But throughout the rest of the show, like, you never hear about somebody working on a cure. You never hear about anybody that can explain why it happened. You can, all this, there's the and then on top of that, like with The Walking Dead, it was, if you die, even if you're not bit, you come back to life. Like, it doesn't matter if you die. Like once you die, you become a zombie. So that's why in The Walking Dead, there's so many of The Walking Dead. And whereas in this story, there's not as many, and they're huddled to places that make sense. So
yeah, I guess that, okay. So that's, and again, I've only ever having watched like only a few episodes of The Walking Dead, but I feel like just from everything I read about it and everything else online, that's a perfect example of, we're so far past the source material now. We should just stop.
To be fair, they were actually not very far past the source material.
Really?
There's a lot of source material. There's a ton of graphic novels and comics for that. And a lot of the characters, like even like when Negan showed up, when all these characters showed up, they were straight out of the comics. So it existed. And maybe they expanded a little bit. The biggest problem that I had with The Walking Dead is that it was just always the same thing over and over and over again. And to be fair, the first season and second season, and maybe even the third season, I think were the best of the show, because they weren't, just like anything else in horror, they weren't starting to get into these cliches and these things that need to happen to make your story fit the mold of whatever genre you're in. The first season of The Walking Dead was so much about the people. It was so much like The Last of Us, not to the same degree, but it was about these people. It was about Rick finding out that his wife was still alive when he was in the coma, and she remarried somebody else, and his kid is now thinks that that's his dad, and like just all this stuff and all these stories. You have an abusive husband, you have all these things that are good human stories that you put into this world, and they made it work. And then it eventually became, what group hates what group this season, and also how are they going to survive a horde of zombies?
well, all in about Walking Dead is there were just a million spin-offs like Fear the Walking Dead and whatever. So I just lost track.
Yeah,
Um,
I enjoyed Fear the Walking Dead. Actually, I watched some of
yeah,
that too. But like I said, it's just over time, like we see with any horror franchise, the longer it goes,
yeah,
you start to slip into the tropes and the cliches because I don't know if the original creators leave and those are the people that have the original ideas,
right,
and then you start moving into people that are pumping out ideas to make money.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know all of the business and politics behind it and what gets it there, but you definitely see it the longer something goes on.
So I'm wondering if we're gonna challenge your video editing skills because I think that we've actually kind of reached the kind of 2 hour mark, I think, at this point.
Yep.
But because Pete's joined us, I almost want to like see if he has anything to say about that damn show that I will not shut up about, Velma. While he's here. And if he doesn't, then cool. But if he does, then maybe we just get a little bit of that, get a little bit of that. Pete, did you watch any more Velma?
No, not yet. I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't had a chance to go back to it. I am gonna finish it though, so we can discuss the end because
Yeah, I'll try and watch it so that we can all talk about it.
yeah, I don't. I mean, I don't think I just from things you put in our group chat. I don't know if I like it as much as Andrew does, but I don't hate it as much as I thought I would
Yeah.
based on the reactions I was reading online.
Yeah.
So I am gonna finish it because it's short. It's half-hour episodes.
Yeah. They go quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's not, but I just find a little bit of time because that's one I will say. Actually, it isn't for kids, but at the same time, it's also really not that like. It is, but it's not.
I think it depends on the kids too, right? Like
Yeah,
what your baseline is for what your kids are
true.
understanding the world, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not Big Mouth. Like that's like the way people were talking. Like the way people were talking about it is that it's like, and I'm like, that's not even Big Mouth is barely even for high school age kids.
No, yeah.
And they're, like it's. Have you ever seen that, Andrew?
No, but I've heard about it. But also,
Oh,
here's my
It's pretty
question:
funny.
did you? I've brought it before. Did you see Sausage Party, Pete?
yeah, a long
Okay.
time ago.
Do you think that's for kids?
Oh fuck no.
No.
Okay, good.
God no.
Because
Yeah.
that one was like straight up like, yeah, it's damn near NC-17. Like
Oh
I was
yeah.
surprised at what they got away with. But again, they said they got away with that shit because they went all the way that so that way the censors would be like, okay, you know what? Fine, we'll let you have this if you take this out.
Well, that's. I mean, you got to think about it though. Team America, World Police,
Oh my god, dude.
the weird puppet sex scene, like
Yes.
just that alone.
Wasn't there a poop scene even in that?
No, that's he poops. Yeah, like
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like the whole, it's like the most bizarre thing to watch because you're watching it. I remember watching that, and the first time I saw it, I actually watched it with my dad because my dad, like, we both like Thunderbirds
Okay.
when I was younger. My dad kind of turned me on to that. So we were like, "Oh, I've heard this is funny. It's by the South Park guys." So we sit down and we're watching it, and we're both watching, and we've been laughing our asses off, and we get it, and it's funny. And all of a sudden, you get to that scene, and you're just like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Like it was just, and I mean, typical and in typical Trey Parker Redstone fashion, like completely unnecessary. So we're gonna do it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
absolutely.
know.
They
But
do not give a shit.
there's so much brilliance in that fucking movie. That movie, like, you laugh it off because it's like, even though it is the South Park guys, you laugh it off because it's like, oh, it's a puppet movie and it's a parody. It's that,
But
dude. I'm
South
sorry.
Park is the same way. South Park, like there are some things in South Park that are so fucking brilliant. And you're like, wait, this is a cartoon that's basically made out of like cut out of paper characters. Like,
Yeah, but dude, like the fucking the Kim Jong Il, fucking I'm Ronry, like the song actually, and singing it, you're like, this is fucking amazing. Like this whole, like just the whole idea, he's just a lonely fucking dude, and that's why he's gonna start World War III. Anyway, I don't know. I'm looking forward to the next episode of the last of The Walking Us.
Yeah, yeah. That'll be next Sunday. So actually, the next time we record, we will not talk about the Last of Us because
You
it will be
almost
on
did
the
it
day after we
too.
record. But what we will talk about is Ant-Man.
Baby.
So look forward to that next week. I've got my tickets for Saturday. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go buy my Kang t-shirt and worship the Kang for the rest of my life. I've just heard he is an absolute scene stealer. So I'm stoked to see what happens in this film.
Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna try and go Friday night. I might wind up joining the recording late if I can't get to it until Saturday, or if for some reason I can't get to it. Um, but yeah, I am very much looking forward to that movie.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It feels
Mhm.
like it's been a long time since we've had anything Marvel. Like
Yeah,
it really hasn't. Like She-Hulk maybe was the last. No, Black Panther,
was
right? Wakanda
yeah, was
Forever
Wakanda
was the
Forever.
last.
November.
So
Yeah,
it feels like an eternity, which is so weird. Like remember when you used to get a superhero movie like every 2 years?
yeah.
Now we're like, shit, it's been 3 months. What are we gonna do?
Dude, like
Um,
there used to be only two. It only went to three Marvel films, I think, starting in what 2016 or 2017. Like it was pretty
yeah,
late. It was always just two, like one
yeah,
in early and then one in late. Now it's three.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't, and it's funny because I think like people talk about that like superhero fatigue, and I don't think there's I don't have fatigue from it. I never felt like fatigue. I think the people who feel like that, it's just because you're constantly inundated with the material that's out there now. Like if you, it's all over the place. But I
I
don't think there's too many of them.
But I think there's bad
Like
storytelling fatigue. If your
Yes.
stories start to get cheesy and corny, that's where people start to get turned off.
I'll give you that, but we haven't had that yet. Like we
No,
have with
not in
like
Marvel. We haven't.
with like um with like and it wasn't my favorite. It had something, but like with Moon Knight, it was a little out there. It was a little different. It was a little off. It set something up. It was things like that you're just kind of like, okay.
I'll be the asshole and say that I personally don't think phase four was up to snuff. And I know everyone's like, yeah, no, it's a setup phase, you're being an asshole, but like I don't. I'm glad it's over. And I'm looking forward to phase five being a better phase. And Ant-Man is the kickoff of that. I just think phase four was glut. There was more material in phase four than any other phase. And I think that was the problem because the material wasn't necessarily, it was more quantity versus quality. And you got me in rant mode now. Bob Chapek was the CEO at that point, and I think that was part of it. I think that they were just it was more cash grabby, honestly,
Yeah.
than the other phases. That's my take personally. So, but again,
Fair enough.
Subpar Marvel is still gold standard anything else. So I just want
It's
to put
true.
that out there.
Yeah,
So
that's fair.
Ah.
So, all right. Well, with that, we will see everyone next week.
Wait, before
Uh,
we end,
no.
what do we think about the DC eat now?
I almost actually I wanted to bring up the Adrian Curry thing for a second. Did you guys hear about that?
Yeah, so with Melanie Linsky,
Yeah, dude.
you
Okay, you know
dumb
what?
shit. It's
Yes,
exactly
yes,
what we
but
were
no.
talking about with J.K. Rowling. Just shut the fuck up.
Oh wait,
Just
what did
like
J.K. Rowling do? I missed that part of the show.
J.K. Rowling's J.K. Rowling. She's anti-trans and she's a total piece of shit. Um,
That's it.
but
Yeah,
but yeah, the Adrian Curry thing was so pointless.
yes, yes, and no, because this is one of the things that's rough with that. I read like the rest of the tweet. I forgot what it said. I'm not defending her by anything, but I do think she's one of those people that just shouldn't be on Twitter because
Mhm.
she's not very
Smart.
articulate. Yeah, I was gonna be slightly nice there, because it's the way she said what she said, and the second half of that tweet is actually like, I forgot what it said, but it was actually pro the idea of that character, and it was less about the way it was like called out for. Um, than it actually was, and I think it is a little symptomatic. If I could find it, I would find it.
You can throw it in the comments on the YouTube page. But my whole thing was like this, and this is a very weird take, but I'll just say it. So you guys know I'm Mr. like low carb, right? So one of my worst nightmares is in a post-apocalyptic era, dude, I'm fucked. I'm eating bread. And guess what? If I'm eating bread, it's all I have. I'm going to be a chunky monkey. I don't care how much exercise or anything. Some bodies literally do not work well with carbs. So
except you can't. That's where the infection started, was in flour and all the stuff that you would eat.
Dude, in that case, I would. Okay, well, in that case, it kind of does.
It'd be keto.
So that in that case, Adrian's criticism was. Anyways, I'm not saying it was valid. I'm just saying, shut the fuck up. Like, no one wants to hear that shit. Let Melanie act and keep it moving. You know, it was just dumb.
I love her,
Melanie Linsky.
Yeah,
she's so great. Did you see Yellow Jackets yet?
No.
Okay, number one, go watch Yellow Jackets. That show is dope. She's fantastic in it. Christina Ricci's fantastic in it.
Which is what's Yellow Jackets?
It is a high school, what are they, lacrosse team, soccer team, something. And they crash in the mountains.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And they survive. So there's two storylines. There's the people that survived and came back, and it's them as adults. But then it flashes back to their story in the mountains to kind of show how they survived. And it's not, it's not all the best things. Like, it opens up to set it up as a supernatural story. And then you kind of question whether it was supernatural or crazy through the whole thing. Right. Like, did they survive because, they're sacrificing people, to whatever mountain demons they found to survive until they get rescued, or were they just crazy and killing each other? Like, it's really good. And it just got a second season starting sometime in the next few months, I think. So it's good. It's really good.
What I was saying about Agent Curry, fuck her. I can't find the reply of the tweet, and it was the thing, but her reply was also just very much like,
wait, so there's no bread ever?
If flour is what I mean,
well, you can't make
potentially if people are now milling their own flour and aren't getting them from the location they were getting them from before, maybe everything's okay.
You can make flour out of bones.
Like, what do people eat in there? I remember at one point they're like, that's like 20-year-old Chef Boyardee or whatever. Like, what do they eat, man?
Oh, you'll find out.
That does not sound appetizing.
Yeah, just stick around. They'll cover it.
Okay.
But as I was saying before, Pete did everything. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're on the Facebooks or the Twitters and you're not Adrian Curry, please share the episode with everybody. The more people watching, the better. We've had a couple of good weeks here, so it's been super awesome. If you're one of our awesome sharing people, it's Jose, Katie, Leah, Jen shared. Who else?
And Stephanie, of course.
Stephanie shared. So I feel like they're almost like co-producers of the show at this point with our sharing. So got to shout them out. And with that, have an awesome week. Next week we'll be back with Ant-Man, and we will talk to you then.
Good night. Shout out to Shannon. Shannon Moe. Hey.